Next we'll hear from head coach Chris Winter. Some breaking news. We will have fireworks after our season opener.
Oh boy. Oh boy, here we go. One more thing going on. Get excited about, right? So first of all, thanks for everyone, being here today and covering Wartburg football and Wartburg athletics. I mean, obviously it means a lot to our players, to our fans, and certainly in our recruiting efforts here at Wartburg. Having you guys getting us out there in the media and get what we're doing, get those stories out there really means a lot. So thank you for being here. I'll start off with just a couple of general comments about how things are coming along with our camp, give you some rundown on some of the kind of positional things that are going on, who are the key returners, that type of thing, and then open it up for questions. And so I think just the theme of camp right now has been one day at a time, and that sounds like a broken record. I said that last year, but it's what it's got to be. I mean, just like Katie Jo said, we're gonna have fireworks the first game. We've got all these polls that are out there, talking about Wartburg and our, the success we're supposed to have, and preseason honors, and all that stuff's fun and great. But if we start getting caught up in, all these things that are going to go on ahead of us, we're going to fall into the trap of complacency and not be what we want to be. And so, my charge to the guys has been, hey, one day at a time. Be where your feet are. Hey, what we're doing right now, that's where your head and your feet have got to be, locked into what we're doing to get better, right? And taking every moment we have, to be together and make sure we're improving. And so I think the guys have bought into that. The other thing you heard me say some last year was this idea of nameless and faceless, and we were kind of talking about our opponents back then. Just making sure we were playing at a level that is our standard, our Wartburg standard, and if we do that, we got a great chance to be successful. I've also applied that this year in camp to us, right? With all these awards that are out there, those are all based on 2022, okay? And right now, last I looked, it's not 2022 anymore. And so right now we're 0-0. We've got the same record as everyone else in the country. We have no accolades in 2023, so there's no All-Americans, there's no All-Conference players, there's none of that. And so I've been asking the guys that's got to be the approach. We're trying to make a name for the 2023 team, and right now we're just a bunch of nobodies at 0-0. And so if we can keep our heads there and not get caught up too much in all the attention that maybe we're getting that we weren't getting at this time last year, I think we've got a chance to be where we want to be when we hit September 2nd and start this tough schedule we're going to have. So that's kind of been the approach that we've been working on here. The other things, besides the on-the-field stuff, just, the usual team and toughness. I mean, I've never been around a team here at Wartburg that's had the success that we're talking about and wanted to have, and the story we're trying to tell here without having a group that's together. And so we've spent a lot of time on building team, on building trust amongst our group, between players, coaches, all the above, anyone involved in the organization. And so I think that's one of the first steps before we even worry about what plays you're going to run or who's going to be out there running those plays, is we got to be on the same page as a group and have every guy in our team feel like what they do on that day matters. And that's been a big thing here, and I think our older guys are doing a great job of leading the way on that. And I guess the last thing I'd say is just, trying to work on being great teammates. You've heard me say it before: humble, hungry, smart. Those are the three areas that we feel like as an individual in our program we've got to be a great teammate. And so again, being coachable, being humble, being coachable, knowing that we have things we can always be working on and getting better at. Being hungry, having a relentless pursuit to be our best, to reach our goals, and smart. Just how to get the most out of the people around you. And the thing I've challenged our guys here in camp is to serve each other. So if I'm a senior, we got a big group of seniors. If I'm a senior, I'm not going to look at myself as better than the first year guy and have him do all the stuff that needs to be done and sit back and relax because I'm a senior. No, I'm going to try and serve the guy next to me and be the type of guy he knows, just make sure that guy knows that I care about him, that I have a relationship with him, and I'm going to try and help him be his best. And so that's another area. When you've got a veteran group, you want to make sure that they don't think too highly of themselves. And so again, we're working very hard to be servants to each other and do a great job being a great teammate. So like I said, a lot of our focus on camp hasn't even been about who we're playing or this or that. It's been about building a culture that can sustain success. And then from there, again, trying to get better at what we do in terms of our schemes and put people in the right spots to be successful. So anyway, that gives you a little idea what, behind the scenes, what's going on in camp right now. And so I guess the next thing I'll hit on is just some of the positions that I'm sure you're interested in hearing about. And so I'll start on the defensive side, with some of our returners on that side. I do think the defense, once again, is going to be a strength of what we do as a team this year. Last season, we led all NCAA levels, Division 1, 2, and 3 in rushing defense, only giving up 45 yards a game. And I would expect that our front seven that I bragged about last year will be dominant again this year. If you look at the guys in that group, so in our defensive line and linebacker crew, some of our returners, Owen Grover obviously is headlining a lot of that. Owen will be playing our Mike linebacker position this year, which he started to do late in the season last year. And really, I think he's got a chance to be one of the best players in the country. And so we're excited about having him back leading the way. A couple guys up front, Riley Conrad, who was an All-American D tackle last year. That's back as a fifth year. Jordan Downing, will be a fifth-year defensive end for us this year. Again, was an all-region player last season and caused havoc in both the run and pass game. Nate Link, even though he was a first-team all-conference performer at outside linebacker for us last year, I think he was still undersold. I haven't seen many guys make some of the plays that he makes game in and game out. So I think he's going to continue to flash and maybe surprise people even more this year with what he's capable of. And then a few other guys who had some roles last year that we're going to be counting on stepping into that front seven. Justin Greif and Christian Nunley, saw both those guys on our defensive line. Justin will be mixing in at the defensive end and the defensive tackle spot. Christian Nunley, will see him at deep tackle in there. Cannon Morris is another name that people would have been familiar with last year, but he tore his ACL early on after I think it was after week 1. And he'll be a guy in the interior D tackle that I think can have a real impact this year. And then going back to the linebacker position quick, Preston Rochford, is going to become a starter this year. Last year he was a big special teams guy for us. Late in the year when Antonio Santillan had his injury, we saw Preston out there, playing our will linebacker spot against against La Crosse and St. John's, and he didn't miss a beat with what we normally do. So then he had a little injury at the end of the year there. So anyway, we were battling a little bit of that, but I think Preston's got a chance to be another guy that kind of breaks onto the scene this fall. So those are some names in that front seven that I think are key returners that you knew a little bit about last year, and that will continue to be a dominant force up front. When it comes to our secondary, this was an area last year that I sat here and said, hey man, I'm not sure. We'll find out what these guys are all about. There wasn't not a lot of guys who started a lot of games, and certainly that became a strength of our team. And so nice to have this year coming back and having 3 of the 4 guys returning from last season. So obviously Parker Rochford will headline that group. Was an All-American safety for us last year, big time playmaker, and just excited about his future. He'll be a junior this fall. Drew Rifles will be a 5th-year corner, coming back for his 5th year, and received all conference honors last year. Dylan Steen is captain of our team, returning starter at our boundary safety spot. He's a 5th-year guy as well, and same thing, just a guy that's just solid back there. He knows our defense like a quarterback of our defense. I'm excited to have him back. And then I think the other guy that you'll notice back there, kind of leading the way in that other starting spot after losing Trent Rolling, is Caleb Lanphier. Caleb had quite a bit of an impact on special teams last year, got in some games late to make an impact. And so Caleb is kind of leading the way in that other starting corner spot. And, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. And then just a few other guys to keep an eye on across the defense. So at linebacker, Mac Watts and Sam Kistner. Mac was a guy that you probably noticed last year as a freshman, kind of busting some things up in special teams. And when we come out there and kind of got a little bit of a lead, you'd see this guy run around at Mike. You're like, man, who's that kid? He can really play. And that was Mac Watts. And so he's back as a sophomore, and I think he's going to have a bigger role this fall. Sam Kistner's a guy who moved from DB to linebacker here in the offseason that I think will have a big impact on special teams and some of our packages on defense. In the D-line group, Walker Hermeyer and Griffin Neal, 2 kids that are going to be juniors this year that have been developing, that I think are really primed to kind of step into a role on our defense. And as we're going to rotate a lot of D-linemen in and out of there, and I think those 2 guys have got a chance to do some special things. And then another D-lineman that some of the locals would know, incoming freshman Jake Walker, obviously an all-state kid for Waverly here in both football and wrestling. He's a heck of an athlete for a first-year player, and I think there's going to be some roles out there for Jake as well when it comes to the D-line. And then our defensive backfield, Thane Alexander. He probably played 50% of the snaps against Mount Union in our final game as we did some 3 safety looks. And then Grant Larson at corner, kind of the 3rd corner. Going to be pushing Caleb Lanphier there for some of the time at corner. And so, I think we've got some good depth right now. We've got some young guys that are hungry for some opportunity. We've got some older guys bringing some experience. It's a good mix on that side of the ball. And I'm really excited to see what our defense can do again here this fall and hopefully build off of the success we had last year. When it comes to the offense, I'm really excited about the turn we took, the corner we turned at the end of last season on offense. You saw the last half, just a different group from the first half of the season. A lot of that had to do with Niall McLaughlin and his confidence. But I think if you look at our offense right now, that backfield that I bragged about last year and that I think came to fruition last year is going to still be the strength of what we do. You start with Hunter Claus and you hand him the ball and a lot of good things happen. Certainly a returning All-American, I think the best back in the country at our level. But then behind him, you've got guys like Ben Bryant, who was an all-conference return specialist. You got Bryson White, who really burst onto the scene last year. Joey Anderson was a young freshman last year that, again, you noticed late in games, like, who's that guy? Well, that was Joey. And so, again, I think there's going to be some nice depth at that running back spot. And then add in Niall. Anytime you talk about the backfield, you got to talk about a guy, again, who's pulling the trigger back there. And certainly, you guys saw a lot about Niall last year in that last half. The leadership, the decision-making, the confidence, the arm strength, the accuracy, and I think toughness too. We got a guy like him that goes out there against Mount Union in that last game on, maybe one leg and just performs the way he did. I mean, you feel good about that guy being the leader of your offense. And so I'm excited about having Niall back and another year under his belt. And I think he's really confident right now and primed to be, one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Now, having said that about the backfield, none of those guys can do much if the offensive line doesn't look very good, right? And so, I think that's another area where I'm excited about some of the depth we built, the experience we built last year. Tucker Kinney has got a chance to be one of the most dominant tackles that we've seen around here in a while, and had an All-American season last year. So you're saying he's got a chance? Well, yeah, I think he'd be better. He can be even better. He's an impressive guy. You add an Alex Lehman who moved from D-line to offensive line last year, kind of got his feet wet, and you just saw him throughout the year just get better and better, and now having a full off season, planning to be an offensive lineman, he's going to be a different guy too. And then Ethan Stockwell, if I had to pick one guy on our team that maybe had the best off season out of any position group, he would be right up in there. He'd be playing our right tackle. I'm really excited about what he's going to be doing. He's put on some weight, kept his athleticism, and just looks like a different guy out there as well. So I think those three guys, and Ethan was an honorable mention all-conference guy last year too. And so those three guys right there are going to anchor that group. Some other guys that I feel good about stepping up, Will Conlon played a big role last year already. He'll be a fourth-year senior. Cade Carpenter put in a bunch of time on our offensive line last year, a local product here from Waverly. Brant Peterson's a fifth-year senior that's back, that has been kind of in that two deep his entire career. And then a couple young guys, Jason Copeman, be a sophomore this year, and Nathan Lorenzen. You saw him playing some tight end last year. He's kind of slid into tackle, and those two guys have got some definite upside as well. So that's kind of that top 8 group of offensive linemen. Again, a good solid core of guys that have experience and some nice depth pieces there that are learning as we go. And I don't want to leave out our wide receiver and tight end crew, the guys that are catching some passes. I think that's another group that really stepped up in the second half of the year, and we started to formulate some roles and see some guys that could be really impressive. Obviously, when we talk about our tight ends, Tom Butters, first guy that comes to mind, super dynamic in the pass game for a tight end, physical run blocker. He does a little bit of everything out there for us. John McConaughey is a name at tight end that really stepped up last year too. I think that 1-2 punch at tight end will probably be about as good as you're going to find at our level of football. And so, I think that's going to be a weapon for Coach Wheeler. Anytime you got some tight ends that can play, it's a lot of times the quarterback's best friend. And so, we're excited about having those guys. And then that wide receiver core. Drake George is a guy who has led our team in receiving for 2 years in a row. I think quietly, maybe a little bit, hasn't gotten all the accolades, but certainly can make some plays with the ball in his hand. Carter Henry is a guy you all saw just really burst onto the scene, I think. Thinking back to Mount Union and some of the plays that happened with him in that game and his performance in a big-time role there. Super impressive. He's just gotten better as the offseason's gone along. Thor Mockstead, I think really in the last probably 4 or 5 games of the year, became a target that we knew, man, he put it somewhere around him, he's going to catch it. And so, he's got that skill to really, make some plays on the ball that are difficult. It's not always going to be the perfect play drawn up, but he's going to make some plays with his hands. And then add in some depth pieces, Carter Busmus, Darius Whaley, Matt Buckner, some names that you've heard for a few years now that have played roles that continue to be around here. So I think that group has got some great experience. Brock Califf is a young guy too that's got a little bit of a spark plug. You saw him in some special teams last year, a little slot that's got some speed and dynamics. So that group certainly is exciting as well. And so I think, like I said, last year on offense, there was some kind of like question marks about who's going to step up and who are going to be the guys. And I think as the season went along, we started to answer a lot of those questions, and they, like I said, turned the corner. And now I'm just fired up to see what that group's going to look like now they've had a whole time together. They kind of know what their role looks like. They've been able to work at those roles, and I think we've got a chance to have really, really impressive offense this fall. Then I should mention our specialist, Cale O'Neill. Okay, Cale O'Neill, all-conference kicker. Certainly, it's been. We made more field goals last year than we probably have in a while, and I felt confident running him out there every time. He's a guy I know is just tough. I think I told you guys last year, you put him in the weight room and he looks like he's one of the other position players. Doesn't look like a kicker. He gets after it. He's a competitive guy. And when you have a kid like that, you count on him. No matter what, I'm ready to run Cale out there, and I believe he's going to get the job done because he's one of those guys that's tough. Jackson Hoppus is a guy that Waterloo West product that I think is going to be our punter this year, kind of leading the charge for that, and it can also place kick. I mean, last year he did some kickoff duty, place kicking when Cale had a little injury late in the year, and he's got a nice strong leg. So those two kids are really as good as you could find special teams wise, and excited about them. And I can't leave out our special weapon at punter that you might see pop out there, Owen Grover. He's got a bazooka for a left leg. He's pretty much good at everything. And so last year that guy, I didn't expect him to be our starting punter for the last half of the season, but you just asked him to do something, and man, it turns out pretty good. So you may still see Owen out there, trying to change the field some with some of our rugby punting, and you never know. So if you got a weapon like that, you're going to use them as much as you can. But those are our people right now. I think, again, there's some more guys that if I sat here and talked about everyone I want to talk about, we'd be in here all day. But those are some guys to keep an eye on. There may be a few more that start to pop up here, some young talent that we're developing. But I think the names that I mentioned there are going to be the ones that are going to be leading the way if we're going to do something special this fall. So that gives you background. That gives you background on our players, gives you background on what we've been working on here in camp. And at this point, questions that you guys have, I'm ready to answer those.
How far ahead are you? I'm sorry, man.
Oh, go ahead.
How far ahead are you? The additional practices last year with all the playoff games and a veteran team. I would imagine that you guys are maybe a week ahead or so than you have been previously.
I think there's definitely that experience, obviously for the guys that played in those games, and also for some of our younger kids that we're looking to, maybe jump into a new role, having a chance to play, 4 more games and play in games like we played in that are in some pretty big time environments, that makes a difference. To me, the way I look at all that experience we have is, again, we don't want to sit here. The thing I've been guarding against with our team is, hey, let's not fast forward through the process, because we've been dying to play a game since we left Mount Union, right? Like everyone, that taste we had in our mouth when that game ended, we've been waiting to play. But you can't just be like waiting to play and passing over the process, right? And so to me, it should give us confidence that we did that. That should give us an advantage as long as we have the right mindset that, hey, even though we did that, that doesn't mean we're automatically better than everyone we line up across from. That was an experience that we were afforded that we should take advantage of and give us confidence, but we still got to follow the process. So it's still that kind of one day at a time, get better today, take what you know, what you learn from those experiences, and have that be an advantage for us, but don't let it make us think that we can just bypass the little things that we did last year to get to where we were. And so that's a good question, and that's a good thing for our guys, and we've been saying that, just trying to help them understand. There should definitely be some confidence about us. There's no doubt our group should be confident, but it's not cocky, it's not arrogant, it's not getting ahead of ourselves, because like I said before, we're a group trying to make a name for ourselves all over again. So I definitely think it can be an advantage if we use it the right way.
You talked about Niall McLaughlin's leadership, and of course a big part of that is off the field, and especially preparing the understudy talent, especially considering this is his 5th year. So how has he been working to kind of take Grant Halverson under his wing? And I'm especially curious to get your opinion on him as a Waverly Shell Rock alum, to be able to play in the college that's in his hometown.
Right, so the first part of that question, Niall's leadership, I would say Niall is somewhat of normally it was a quiet leader initially, and I think he stepped into a little bit more of a, hey, I'm going to speak up when things aren't the way they're supposed to be, and I like that. I think that's what we need from him. I think early on he didn't maybe have that confidence to voice exactly what he thought. He was going to do his thing and lead by example, but now he understands that, hey, I got to bring some people along with me, and people are looking to me. I think he's got some confidence because guys believe in him. He can see that. And so I think he's done a great job. Here in the off season, I know there was a number of times where he would step up and make some comments and help the team along and bring guys along and make sure our whole operation was going the right direction. Specifically with that quarterback group, certainly he's like an extra coach out there. I think he's coaching those guys up, helping them out. He knows what we're doing. So, Coach Wheeler is certainly working his tail off to get those other guys besides Niall ready to go. But Niall is a humble guy. Like I said, he's one of those guys I mentioned before that's a great teammate. He's gonna, he's not gonna think of himself as better than Grant Halverson or Leo Dodd or Carter Markham or anybody in that group. He thinks of himself as an equal, and he's gonna work hard to help those guys get better too. So in terms of Niall, that's the type of guy he is. And I think one of the things we said last year too, Niall, one of the things he does, set gets done, instead of going back and getting the water for himself, he grabs the bucket and takes the old line to make sure they got water first. So that's just the kind of guy that he is. In terms of Grant Halverson and his development, I think Grant has really opened some eyes in his first year, and excuse me, some fly in my face there, but in our first year and a half, here, the first year and a half he's been here, I think a lot of people, maybe thought Grant could come in here and, kind of be a guy that would develop along the way and maybe figure some things out as he got a little older. But man, he understands the offense as well as anybody in that quarterback room. He's a confident guy. I think he runs the show as well as any young guy. And, I think a lot of that has to do with, like I said, being around people that he can see doing it the right way and learning from them. So I think having Niall as a mentor has really helped Grant. And, I like what he's doing. I think he's got a bright future in our program. And he's right in that mix. I think that kind of that second, third quarterback thing right now, that's why I didn't really bring it up as much in my my deal here. I think there's still some things to be solved in that group, because some guys they all have different strengths, and so I'm interested to see how that shakes out here. And we have one more scrimmage to get some more opportunities for us to make some decisions on what that looks like for the quarterback depth. But Grant's definitely in there, and just a great kid. Obviously, as a local kid, you're happy and excited for that to be part of what we're doing. So
obviously, Coach, a lot of reasons for optimism, but at this point, what's your main question mark for this year's team?
Yeah. I think it comes back to, are we capable of, doing what I said, taking it one day at a time, not getting too far ahead of ourselves, making sure these teams are nameless faces. There's a lot of stumbling blocks along the way if you wanted them to be that way, right? Like, first of all, I'm going to tell you that our schedule is going to be, I think, as challenging as it's ever been. And if you start overlooking any team in our schedule, it's going to be a problem. I think a lot of people are probably looking at that, that week 2 matchup, and they're thinking, okay, well, that's going to be the big game. To me, Monmouth College coming in here is what we're worried about right now. That team's a good football team. They've got a number of 50-year seniors coming back, and so I think, to me, I think we've got the pieces, right? We've got all the talent. We've got all the parts. It's, can we focus on one day at a time and not get lost in some of the hype that's surrounding us right now? Honestly, I think that's our biggest challenge. That, and then just having depth, right? You can never have enough depth. We can talk about how many All-Americans we got coming back and all these guys, but what happens if something happens to that guy? Okay, is the next guy ready to go? Are we the same team if that guy's not playing? And that's been one of the things here, I think, too, in camp, is trying to build that, make sure we've got that. So to me, I think last year we were very fortunate. We stayed healthy for a long time. And we didn't really run into those injuries until really late with Antonio and a couple things that happened. And so, can we stay healthy? Can we have enough depth? And can we keep our head out of the clouds and not allow the excitement and all the things that are surrounding our program right now to make us think that we're better than we really are? And I think if we can get by those hurdles, we got a chance to really do something again this year.
Yeah, everyone's talking about it. The expectations are as high as they've ever been, and how was being part of the staff for that 2014 season to 2015 season informed you? Because it's not the same thing. You'll have near as many people coming back, but you had the Gallardi semifinalists. You had a pretty good team, and you go from having the eventual national champs in a spot where you thought you should have beat them to not making the playoffs next year. Does that help you coach better this year's team?
I think it does. I think it also gives me some ammo to let the guys know. So in the off season here, you're exactly right, Matt. You're on it. The off season here, we went back through every 10-0 team. Not just, 2014 was probably closest we've been to win a national championship besides last year. But just any 10-0 team that played in Wartburg history, and then we looked at the following season and what was the record of that following season. Either we missed the playoffs or we went 8-3 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. That's what it was. And so that was my charge to the guys. Hey, it's complacency, right? What is complacency? What happens in complacency? I don't think anyone thinks they're complacent until it hits them in the face, right? And so that's one of the things I try to tell the guys this year is we've got to keep an eye out, because the definition of a complacency is really not knowing that you're complacent. That's what that you're taking time off, that you're not doing what you need to do. It's the unawareness of that. And so to me, it's like, hey, we got to be aware. we've got to be aware and we got to be on guard. And that's what I charged our older guys with in the off season. If you see something that you don't think is the way it should be, let's not just go, okay, it'll be fine, we'll fix it tomorrow, or we'll get it later, it's not that big a deal. No, let's fix it now. And let's not allow ourselves to fall in that trap. Because I think, again, I was around for almost every one of those, either as a player or a coach, and I've seen it. And like I said, I think every one of those teams would have never thought they were complacent until one of those games hit, didn't go the way we wanted it to, and next thing you're like, man, geez, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that. So, yeah, we tried to kind of catch that early and try to help those guys understand, hey, this is what it looks like. So I think that's what I gained from those experiences. Is like, let's not wait till August to nip that. Let's start that right in the off season when we get going. Let's start analyzing how we're approaching things day in and day out, and let's get on top of it.
And the reverse side of that, one thing that if you look at the history of Wartburg, it's like any team, they break through walls. You make the playoffs, then you make the second round, then you make the quarterfinals. So you made the quarterfinals a few times, then you bust through down to the semifinals. Does that busting through that wall and kind of opening up a new realm of possibilities help you?
Yeah, it definitely does. It gives us confidence, right? That's kind of like I said before with Mark's question. It gives us confidence. But at the same time, I think we also have to understand that, hey, one or two things go a little differently in Central last year, and we maybe not get that opportunity. Or that Co game, there was a couple things that had to go our way for that to go, one thing here, one thing there. Next thing you know, we're all sitting here hoping we can win a conference championship for the first time in a while. And then you look at the playoffs, anytime you play a playoff game, it could go either way. We got to be on the good side of that, and then we felt what the bad side of that was like at Mount Union. So I think that the margin for error in those scenarios is something that I think helps us understand, hey guys, the margin for error in a big football game, whether it's a conference game or whether it's a playoff game or whatever it is, it's not very, very large. We should be confident knowing that we understand that, we can overcome that, we can take care of business and win those type of games, but we can't just think that just happens automatically. All that stuff happens through your preparation, through what you do every day. It's not just turning it on, when the game starts. And so that's what I think we learned last year, and I'm hoping, as like you can tell, that's what I've been really focusing on. I'm hoping that we're getting that through to our players, and they really believe in just, hey, focus on the process, make sure you're doing things to the best of your ability, the way you've been coached. And if we do that repeatedly and we stack reps on top of reps in that manner, then I think the rest will take care of itself. And so, but yeah, I think it does give us some confidence in breaking through those walls and knowing that, hey, that's possible. Wartburg can do that. I don't know if people thought Wartburg could do what we did last year. Now I think they do. Now I think there's belief. You got to have belief to take the next step. So we got that, but now we got to make sure we also stay humble and don't get complacent. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Chris, did the success help open some doors? I know you got 176 kids out for football this year.
Yep. Yeah, it opens up some doors to recruiting. There's no doubt. I think there's just some excitement about joining our program. I think there's also, obviously everyone knows if you have the numbers that we have, not everyone can play. But I think some guys understand that, hey, I want to go to a good program like Wartburg's where I can have that experience, where I'm going to be surrounded by guys that are going to challenge me to be my best, where, yeah, I could choose a program maybe where they have less numbers and I might play a little bit sooner, but I may not win as much. And I may not be able to reach my full potential because I'm not around these people that are really forcing me to raise my level. And so I think we're finding that, yeah, there's some kids out there that want that are looking for that. And certainly that success, that, there's something about being able to win and be able to sell, like, that you truly have a chance to win a national championship in your program, that, yeah, people want to be part of that. And it doesn't matter to them necessarily if they're playing as a freshman or if they have to develop a little bit and learn from some guys that are, have some experience and hopefully at some point be better than they would have been if they chose a school that's not going to be as good. And so, yeah, I think it's opened doors. I would say this is as talented of a recruiting class as we've had. We've seen a few more kids that have been interested in like kind of the transfer side. I don't think that's where we're making our living at Wartburg. It's a developmental program, but certainly, if a guy is the right fit and decides that Wartburg could be a better fit than where he was at, we're open to that. We found a few kids I think that are going to impact us this fall in that regard too. So yeah, it's had an impact on our recruiting, just on our just the recognition of people outside of even our state that know a little bit about what Wartburg really is. And I'm hoping we can continue that. I think that could have a tremendous impact on our ability to sustain this success. So. Yeah.
Chris, Owen Grover, I just want to clarify. You said last year you moved into the Mike linebacker spot?
Correct, yeah. So Owen was our will back, kind of our outside backer to the boundary. When Antonio Santillan, who had been, staple of our defense since he was a freshman, you know, in that middle. He got banged up in our Simpson game out here. And so when we got to play Co in that final game of the year, we had Owen bump into our Mike linebacker, that one guy in the box, the middle backer, and put Preston Rochford in there at the will. And